Today's recipe calls for edamame. This is going to be one component to our meal prep meal of honey soy glazed chicken, basically teriyaki chicken. This thing is going to be super simple to slap together, and it's going to be high in protein. So with that said, let's get started. The first component of our meal prep meal we'll start with is the rice. Grab a medium-sized holding device. To that, you'll add 1 cup or 213 grams of a good quality long grain Thai jasmine rice. After the grains have been added, pour in enough water into the bowl that will fully submerge the rice in the liquid. Give the rice a shimmy and shake for a few minutes. The goal is to wash off as much excess starch as possible. After a couple of minutes, you'll notice the water has become super cloudy and milky looking. Pour off all the cloudy water. Do your best not to lose any of the delicious grains. Once you've managed not to waste any of the good stuff, repeat the same process with fresh water. You'll wash the rice a total of 2 times to ensure we get as much of that starch off as possible. This step will help give us a nice fluffy rice that will have a ton of individual grains instead of a large, clumpy, sticky mess if we didn't wash it. Now that it's squeaky clean, grab a fine mesh strainer and drain the rice. Drain all or as much of the water off as possible. We don't want to add any of that starchy water to our pot when we cook. It may throw off the entire cooking process. I find it helps if you shake and kind of gently toss the rice in the strainer to get rid of more of the water. Grab a pot that has a nice thick bottom and will also be the perfect size. We want something that will allow the rice to double in size once it's been cooked. Picking too large of a pot and the rice won't be submerged in the water, preventing it from getting a proper cook. Measure out 1 1/4 cups or 300 mils of cold water. You may have to squint and close one eye to get the proper measurement. Grab the H2O and the uncooked grains. Gently toss the pot over the heating element. Add the liquid and give the pot a little shake to ensure all the rice is fully underwater and in one even layer. Crank the heat up to a medium-high heat. We'll leave it on this ripping high heat until the water hits a simmer, meaning it's barely starting to bubble. Once it has reached this point, throw a lid atop of the pot. You want to use a lid that has a tight, snug fit to it. This will help keep the heat and steam in for that proper cook. After the top is on, turn your heat to a really low temp. Set a timer. We'll cook this rice on this low temp for 15 to 20 minutes or until the rice has doubled in size, is fluffy looking, and is also tender in texture. While it's cooking, don't mess with the pot. Also, leave the lid on, be patient, trust the process, and wait for the timer to go off. Once you hear the buzzer go off, it's time to check on the rice. It should look pillowy and light. All the liquid should have been completely cooked off as well. You can check this by grabbing a rubber spat and getting in between the rice and the pan. If the bottom is dry, you know it's done. Alternatively, if your rice isn't done, throw the lid back on top and cook it for an additional few more minutes. When it's done, take it off the heat source with the lid still attached to it. We want to allow the rice to steam and rest for 10 to 15 minutes before we mess with it. After the resting period is over, gently fluff the rice to break it up from the large puck it is. Grab a half sheet tray, toss all the rice onto the sheet, make it into one nice even layer, set it aside to allow it to completely cool down so we can move on to the next project. Grab yourself a small sauté pan. We're going to toast 2 tablespoons of white sesame seeds. Take these 2 things over to the heating element. Once the little seeds are in the pan, crank the heat up to a medium level of hot. Toast them for 2 to 3 minutes or until they become a nice golden brown color. Throughout this process, give them a toss or stir around to ensure things won't burn. Doing this will also help with getting that even toast on all the seeds. You can totally skip adding the sesame seeds to your meal prep to save on time. After you've achieved that golden color, transfer things to a half tray to allow them to cool down. Next, we'll be moving on to the protein portion of our meal. Grab a small yellow onion, cut the top off, which is the opposite end of the hairy side. Once the veg is topless, cut that thing in half. Peel the skin off the entire item. Cut the onion into 1/4 inch thick half-moon slices. Repeat this process until everything has been sliced up. Grab 3 medium-sized garlic cloves. Peel all the skins off. It helps if you cut both ends off to peel them a lot faster. Now that they are naked, give them a smash with the side of your blade. Smashing them will help release the juice and natural oils they hold, giving our dish more flavor during the cooking process. The next item we need to prep is our chicken. Grab 4 medium to large sized chicken breasts. Should be about 2 pounds or just over 1,000 grams worth of protein. You may or may not need to clean the chick up by taking off any of the fat or any other spots that don't look good. You'll notice that the chicken breast is uneven in size. One side will be a little thicker than the other. We want to make it into one even layer. This will help ensure we get a proper even cook. Before we flatten things, grab some type of protective layer, either plastic wrap that will completely cover the chicken, or you can put them into a zip top style bag as well. This will help ensure that we won't be spreading any type of bacteria. Once covered, use your favorite smashing device. Give the thicker side of the breast a few good whacks until it has the same thickness all the way across. You'll want to use a medium smashing force when doing this. Repeat this until all 4 pieces are flattened out. Now that they have been flattened, cut the chicken into pieces that are about 1/4 inch thick in width. Cut the chicken from side to side. This will give you pieces that will be about 2 to 3 inches long. After everything has been cut, toss it in a bowl and set it aside for meow. Give your work area a thorough clean. Also give your ball catchers a thorough clean as well. The second to last thing we need to prep out is our teriyaki sauce before we start cooking. Grab a medium-sized holding device. To that, we'll add 3 tablespoons of a light soy sauce. Following the soy, we'll add 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar. To counterbalance the acid, add 2 tablespoons of honey. You can swap the honey for agave syrup, maple syrup, or granulated sugar. You may have to adjust the amount used depending on how sweet the ingredient is. Next, we need to add some fresh aromatic ingredients. First, we'll add 4 large to medium-sized garlic cloves. Use a microplane to grate the vampire repellent into the bowl. If you do not have a microplane, you can use a garlic press or a different type of grater, or you can mince the garlic into super small pieces. If using the plane, run your fingy on the backside to knock loose any garlic that may be stuck. Grab yourself some fresh knobs of ginger, peel all the skin off using a spoon. We'll be using 0.8 ounces or 23 grams worth of this stuff. Grate the root into the bowl of goods using the microplane or another type of grater. This stuff really likes to stick to the microplane, so ensure you knock it loose to get it all off. Pro tip, after you're done using your stick grater, give it a good rinse to wash anything off that may be stuck to it. This will help prevent the ginger or garlic from drying out and sticking to it, which will make it a lot easier to wash later. Give the bowl of ingredients a good mix together to bring it into one saucy mess. Taste test the goods and adjust the seasoning as needed with some coarse ground kosher salt. You can also adjust the sauce by adding more acid or sweetness to hit the flavor profile you're looking for. The last thing we need to do is make a slurry, which will help thicken our teriyaki sauce later. Combine together equal parts of cold water and cornstarch in a small apparatus. It'll be 1 tablespoon of each ingredient. Once together, thoroughly whisk your face off to bring these 2 items into one. Keep in mind, we won't use it right away, so while it sets around, it's going to separate. You will need to whisk it back together before you add it to the pan. Now that you have everything prepped out, grab a large saute pan. Take the onion, garlic, and the pan over to the heat source. Add a high heat oil that has a neutral taste to it. Should be enough oil to lightly coat the bottom of the pan. Crank the heat to a medium level. Allow the pan of oil to become ripping hot. You can test this by adding a few pieces of onion to the pan. If the pan goes sizzle sizzle, you know it's hot and ready to go. Add all the sliced onion, give it a quick stir up to break the onion up and to coat everything in the oil. Add the garlic cloves in. We need to season as we go, so add a few pinches of coarse ground kosher salt. Cook the onions for 9 to 10 minutes or until they become slightly golden brown in color. Give things the occasional stir to prevent the items from burning. Once the goods have have been cooked, transfer everything over to a half tray. Ensure you take all the onion/garlic out of the pan. We don't want to leave things behind that could potentially burn. After the pan is cleared, add another small amount of oil. Should be the same amount as before. Allow it to become super spicy hot. This will help us achieve a good sear on the chicken. Once it's hot, add half of the protein to the pan. Add it into the pan in one even layer. Do your best to prevent the pieces from touching. This way we get an even cook on it. We'll do this in 2 sets because we don't want to overcrowd the pan. Season the chick with a few good pinches of coarse ground kosher salt. Cook this first side for around 5 to 6 minutes or until it becomes golden brown in color. To achieve this coloring, you must leave it undisturbed. If you want to check if it's done, flip a piece over to see where you're at in the cooking process. We'll be cooking the chicken over a medium-high heat source, so you may need to adjust the heat up or down. Once the 5 to 6 minutes is up, or when all the pieces have been cooked off to a golden perfection, flip each piece over. We'll be cooking this side the same way we did when we first started cooking the chicken. This process should take around 10 to 12 minutes total. When the chicken starts to release a ton of its juices, that's a good indication that it is done. Grab the thickest piece and temp it with a thermometer. We're looking for a temp of 160 Fahrenheit or 71 degrees Celsius. When it hits this temp, you know it's done. While it's resting, it will carry over cook the 5 degrees to hit that 165 Fahrenheit or 73 degrees Celsius. Transfer the cooked chicken over to the half tray that has our onion on it. Now that the pan is empty, add the other half of the chicken in. Repeat the same process as we did with the first batch of protein. When the second half has been cooked, clear the pan out. You'll notice the bottom of the pan is coated in a thin layer of brown stuff. This is known as fond. It holds a ton of flavor and will add a lot of goodness to our teriyaki sauce, so don't get rid of it. Before we add our sauce to the pan, turn the heat down to a low level of heat. Add the soy sauce mixture to the pan. Beware, it's going to be really hot and steamy. Do your best not to breathe the steam/vapors in, or you might end up having a coughing fit, and nobody wants that. Gross. We are deglazing the pan with our sauce. So after the liquid adage, immediately scrape the bottom and sides of the pan with a spatula to release all of that fond. Give things a good stir to add it in and to prevent things from burning. Now that the pan has been deglazed and is starting to lightly bubble, we'll add our slurry in to thicken the sauce. Don't forget to give it a good whisk before you add it into the pan. It should be a thin, milky looking liquid. Slowly pour the slurry into the pan in a steady, thin stream. While pouring, you also need to be whisking it into the sauce at the same time. Pro tip, a spatula doesn't work all that well for that, so using an actual whisk for this task will make it a lot easier. Your sauce may become congealed and lumpy looking. Don't worry, it's not ruined. All you need to do is add a small amount of water to help thin it back out. Shoot for roughly tablespoon-sized amounts of water when you add it in. I recommend turning the burner off at this point. This way we won't burn our sauce. The residual heat from the pan will cook the sauce. Keep adding water until you have a consistency that's nappe, which means it holds its shape on the back of a spoon after you've run your finger through it. If it's too thin, turn your heat back on to low. Cook it for a few minutes to allow it to reduce to become thick again. Once satisfied with the thickness, take about half of the sauce out of the pan, toss it into a bowl, and set it aside for later. Following that, add all the chicken and onion mix back into the pan. Give everything a good mix up to coat it in our teriyaki sauce. If things aren't saucy enough for you, add back some of the sauce from the bowl we set aside. Taste test your sauced up chicken, adjust the seasoning as needed with salt. Once you're happy with the flavor, transfer it all over to a half tray. Make the chicken into one even layer on the tray to allow it to completely cool down. Set that aside so we can move on to cooking the last item of our meal prep. Grab a medium-sized saucepan, To that, add the frozen edamame that has been taken out of the shell. We'll be cooking 1 pound or 454 grams worth of these little green things. Follow the directions on the package. Add enough water to the pan so that everything is fully submerged in the H2O. It doesn't tell you to do this, but season the water with a few big pinches of coarse ground kosher salt. Once you've done that, take the pot of goods over to the thing that cooks other things. Crank the heat up to high. Allow the pot to come up to a boil. When it hits a boil, turn the heat down to a medium-low heat. We want our pot of goods to be at a light simmer. Set a timer to cook these for 8 to 9 minutes or until they become al dente and tender in texture. Stir the pot occasionally to prevent things from sticking and to get an even cook. I really like edamame. They will take on any flavor that you throw at them. They also have a good amount of protein to them. When the buzzer goes off, give them the texture test. If they pass, strain and drain the edamame. Following that, toss them on a half tray to cool completely. Give the little green thing a taste and adjust the seasoning as needed. After making it hail salt grains, give the tray a mix to ensure the salt is distributed through all the product. Allow all the different components to cool before we portion the meals. As for the extra sauce we saved, give it a once over. It might have thickened up a little, so we need to do the same thing as we did before and thin it out with a little water. While things cool down, now would be a great time to do some dishes. It's also a great time to find the containers you'll be using for storage. This is the perfect opportunity to use the to-go containers you've been saving. They're finally coming in handy. There are a few ways of dividing up all the components for the meal prep meals. You can eye out the portion sizes, or the best way is by using a kitchen scale. I'm sure everyone knows how to do this, but grab the total weight of each item and then divide by however many meals you planned on making. In my case, that was 4 separate meals. Each food container of mine will have 120 grams of rice, 105 grams of edamame, and 186 grams of teriyaki chicken onion mix. This came out to be the perfect meal size for me. Of course, play around with the portions to hit your needs and goals. Now we need to add the final little touches to the meals. Take the extra sauce we saved from earlier, drizzle some over the rice, and then over the chicken. Or you can also portion out the sauce to save it for later. So after the meal has been heated up, you can add it on at that time. To give the meals that sweet aesthetic look, garnish the rice and chicken with our toasted sesame seeds. Pop the tops on all of our food apparatus holders. Toss those bad boys in the fridge box for later. When it's feeding hour, heat the meals up in the microwave to your desired warmth level. These meals are a great post-workout dish or are perfect for those busy weekdays when you don't feel like making dinner. Share them with your friends or keep them all to yourself. Whatever you decide to do, just enjoy. Alright, now that our meal prep meal is done, let's give it the old taste-a-roo. So looking at it, it came out super aesthetically pleasing. There's a ton of brown in there. We got that light brown, the dark brown, a beige, even a tan in there. To contrast that though, is that super bright white from our rice. Then we get that really vibrant green from our edamame. Overall, it just looks super tasty. The chicken is nice and saucy, and the rice looks super fluffy, and the edamame itself just looks really tasty and inviting. And the sesame seeds on top is a nice little garnish to make it look extra fancy. So let's give it a taste. I'm gonna try each thing on its own and then all together at once. So we'll try the rice first with a little bit of sauce. Our rice came out super bomb. Jasmine rice is by far my favorite rice that exists. It has that really distinct flavor profile to it. The sauce on top of our rice really brings a ton of flavor to the table with the garlic and the ginger and the soy. The toasted sesame seeds also bring a little flavor as well to help round it out. Texture-wise, it's nice and fluffy and just cooked perfectly. And then the seeds also bring a little crunch to the table as well. Overall, this is really good. So let's try our edamame. The edamame also came out super tasty. On its own, it's kind of flat, so the salt that we added helps bring out some of the natural flavors that it holds. It brings a little bit of saltiness to the dish to help balance it, in my opinion. Texture-wise, came out perfect. They're nice and al dente. Still have a little bit of crunch to help bring some texture to the dish as well. So let's try our chicken next. Yep. Our chicken came out super bomb. All the flavor is in that sauce, and each bite is a little bit different. Maybe on that first bite you get a ton of ginger, so it's that pop of freshness. And what pairs well with ginger is honey, so we get a little bit of sweetness as well. The next bite you might get a ton of garlic and onion, which is like the best combination out there, and garlic is just super tasty. Then of course you get that nice deep rich soy sauce flavor that brings that umami. The rice vinegar helps really round out the dish by adding that acid to make it nice and perfectly balanced. We get a little flavor from our toasted sesame seeds. Then we get some flavor from that hard sear that we got on our chicken as well, just to help make it perfect. Texture-wise, it's nice and juicy and tender. Overall, it's just super tasty. So let's go for the ultimate bite. Get a little bit of everything. Try to at least. Yeah, that's the way to go. This meal prep meal is pretty simple to slap together, and it's really easy to make it the way you would like it. Maybe get rid of the white rice and use some brown rice, or get rid of the edamame altogether and use a different type of veg, or really spice it up by adding some homemade chili oil to make it even more delicious. So hopefully you enjoyed today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'm gonna go hunt down and look in my fridge for some chili oil so I can slap it on top and devour this thing. So we'll see you on the next one. There's a ton of brown going on. Brown as well. Just a ton of brown. My hell. Bro with flavor. That nice pop of green. Nice. That's all you say is nice. Maybe the first bite. The first. Yeah. Yeah.